So your approach is different in that, as you said, you have a system in place. You already have IoT logic. You've got it all built. You don't need to go start by plugging into facility A's IT system, see how it works, then later change. And it's all there. It's a standalone, off the shelf, if you will, IoT package. Can you share a little bit of the details? I know we have a graphic up next. What does IoT the right way look like? If we could look at the whole picture, and see the elements here that essentially Senzary as a package ready to deploy, how you can do this in 2 to 4 weeks versus, months and months for pilot scale applications.
That's good. Thank you. The first thing, which it's pretty important, is that we are agnostic. What that means is that, like everybody, we end up having our favorites because experience gives you, better experiences with some vendors and others. And it's not just the technology, the quality of the products, the support, the facility to work with it and so forth. So there's a scorecard for that. We work with people from China, Taiwan, Australia, Germany, Italy, Poland, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the second thing is the 80-20 rule. We have invested tremendous amount of time and money in building the 80%. What I mean by that is that we have, at this point, I think, 80% of what anyone would want. The other 20% is when, once we are in business together, we start customizing this thing for your operation in particular. It might be a customized existing set of dashboards, as an example. It might be some specific integrations with particular applications via APIs or via all the means, MQTT, et cetera, et cetera. Or it could be customization, new code, new software that you need to incorporate into what you want. All of that is now so possible. I remember when we used to work in with applications back 20 years ago, where the applications would not talk to themselves. So then voice XML came up, SOAP came up, XML came up, and then all of these protocols came up that helped the world move into the industrial revolution of the 20th century, right? So I think we are experiencing this multiplied a la X with all this new technology and integration capabilities that we have and it's about a process, and it's about having the right toy to play the right game. I like to think that this is like an orchestra where you can have a saxophone or a trumpet, but if you don't know how to play a violin, we all know how it sounds. I think we have learned to play nice music, great music with the orchestra that we have, which is composed of our technology, sensors, and all of that stuff, right? So those two are very important, and they are key to being able to deploy very quickly, these different things. In addition to that, we also have the ability to deploy on the cloud, which is super quick, but we can do hybrid and we can do on-premise. And on-premise can be like the whole thing can be on-premise, because there's many companies that will not have it in any other way. Or we can start different type of pilots on the cloud, which is super secure. We work with governments, airports, Fortune 500, so we have been grilled about security more than once, guaranteed. But then our technologies only speak from the inside to the outside. We at no time enter into the network of the clients, even if we're connected through the network of the clients. All the communications go from the inside to the outside. That's pretty important. So I think that in addition to that, the cherry to the cake is you have the ability to pick your pain point. Is your pain point maintenance? Is operations? Is it tracking assets that get lost, like in the case of Shell, for instance, where subcontractors confused equipment that was not theirs for theirs, and also environmentals. There's so much regulations, like there's new regulations from MSHA for silica, for instance. How quickly can you react to that? How quickly can you be in compliance, and how much is it going to cost you? So we have very simple easy to implement solutions for all those different pain points. So pick your poison, and then we can grow horizontally, we can grow vertically, and that's the key to this. It's a Lego. You can add more and more and more, and all of them are almost done. So you just need to tell us how you want it to look like and how you want it to interact with your own people, alarms, events, notifications, integrations, and then you're in business.
That's a great summary, Eric. And that, I mean, most companies, the larger the company, the more pain points and different levels or different floors, as you say, they're going to have. And oftentimes, you start with the solution for a floor one pain point, which is I need to do predictive maintenance for my fan motors. And then you design a solution for that, or the company designs a solution, and then they have another pain point, which is we need to track our vehicles en route, from suppliers to our facilities, and another solution is designed for that. But really, what I'm hearing is like what's possible now is there's one solution. You just have to integrate it or basically plug into it whatever your pain point is. You don't have to redesign all of these different systems. It's all there. It's one system. Um, and as the awareness throughout the organization grows about the capabilities, or it's like, hey, we have this IoT thing now, it's working great at facility A, they do emissions, they do predictive maintenance, what else can we do? Scalability is key. Some of the customers that you mentioned, some of ours are Fortune 500s. They have hundreds of facilities throughout multiple countries. Sometimes it's super important to be able to deploy a tool or an operating system that can be scalable throughout the organization. So that's really amazing. Um, I
Yeah,
think
and I just want to add, because what you're saying is true, that also when you think of IoT, 99% of the people will think of the sensor. What most people don't pay much attention to or underestimate the complexities is that we're deploying thousands of sensors across countries, across multiple plants. There needs to be an embedded onboarding and project management capability within the process and the product. So our product is not just geared towards visibility or measuring things. It's geared on the left, so to speak, towards the beginning of it, which is before it was implemented, and dealing with all the issues associated with all those implementations, and minimizing the amount of tickets or the why is this happening, or the inability. I mean, I have a customer like AIC, and they have a customer which is a cement company or something. Then they are going to do an installation, and they have on whatever city as a different type of electrical company that will go there doing the installation of the sensors. And then they have an electrician who has never heard the word IoT, and he has to install an analog sensor and then see if that is connected to our platform in the back. We are really trying to shortcut all this into very, very simple ways to get all these processes running super efficiently.
Yeah, that's super important as well. I wanted to just mention or ask one question about sensors. You mentioned, so you've got a toolkit, if you will, of thousands of sensors. Customers may have their own existing sensors. We've
Yes.
historically sold and used all kinds of sensors. There's many high quality sensors out there for doing particulate monitoring, things like that. To what extent does the customer need to replace their sensors, or how does that plug and play with your IoT logic and Sensory's implementations?
Not at all. Actually, I love cooking, and one of the things I enjoy cooking is what do I have available, and one beautiful dish can I make with what I have on the kitchen. So I hope my wife will attest to that. But the thing is, we have sensors which are now wireless, which is great. We also have a great variety of nodes, as I call them, to separate or to make that distinction, where we can connect multiple protocols. We have nodes that have like Modbus, which is a typical industrial communication protocol for like PLCs and things like that. So they are Modbus servers or Modbus client slaves on the right side to write or read from these devices, and then they turn around and immediately convert all of that into wireless. We're doing that right now, for instance, in Mexico with H2S sensors that were installed there, God knows when. So we're connected to them via RS-485, along with our wireless H2 sensors that we added to the mix, right? So all the typical industrial protocols are like RS-485, analog, digital, for alarms and events and pulses. We can read meters. We can read pulse meters. We can have different channels, like 8 of this, 4 of that, 2 of this, 2 of that. So the entire gamut of industrial, serial, and other communications are very easy to integrate into this whole mix. And I think that's a very important comment you're making, because obviously it's important to be able to use what they already have before you start adding stuff, you know? Needless to say, you will have people like, because there's another issue with that different, which is like you have maybe a reliability manager and he needs to get a pressure, let's say, but it's very hard for him to get that from the SCADA or from whatever other system, because they cannot customize it or modify it to give that person that information he needs or she. So we layer up our sensors, even if there's duplication, because they're serving a different purpose, or it's convenient for some other reason.
That makes perfect sense to me. Beautiful. So I go ahead and go to the next slide, Andy. And Eric, I had teed up some visuals of the dashboard, a couple example dashboards that we can pull up next that are on the next couple slides. But I wanted to kind of summarize the conversation somewhat here and say, we've talked about a lot of things: scalability, security, the real-time capability, the kind of elephant in the room that's AI driving everything,
Yes.
on both the sensory side and the dashboards and the data and all of it. So can you kind of give us a closing statement, if you will, on why is this a game changer? What is Senzary bringing to our customers and their enterprises, that's different?
Your life before Windows or Excel or Word existed was different. Your life before the cell phone was there was different. So I think we are about to experience a similar type of event, of tectonic type event, that there is no excuse now. You just don't have any excuse anymore. It doesn't cost that much. It's easy to implement. It is wireless and plug and play. It is industrial quality, explosive rated. Anything you can think of that you want to measure, anything can be done, and more. Not only that, you can do things in a different way. When you wanted to know if a cabinet was open, you would have a mechanical way. Now I can even put a light sensor that will tell me if the light changed, meaning the thing was open. We're measuring distance to the floor on tires with radars, mini radars, which will tell us the wear and tear of the tires. So we're being able to measure new things in new ways that was not even possible before, right? So the game-changing portion of this is that it's all blended, integrated, ready to use. So you have a digital twin with all the infrastructure required to do this thing. It can scale horizontally, vertically across the entire corporation, and it's super cost effective. So my final question is, why are you not doing this?
That's a great question. The cost effective and the plug and play piece is just huge to me, because yeah, you can get a pilot up and running for next to nothing. It's not a huge CapEx budget. So yeah, there's so many opportunities. It's amazing. So Andy, if you don't mind, go to the next slide. I wanted to put these screenshots in here, just the example dashboards, to give some folks that are listening who may be on like the operations side, like what, and then thinking, what does this look like? What is an what does an IoT system do for me? What am I getting here? So, these folks all have SCADA systems, they'll have an HMI in the control room, that kind of thing. Walk us through this slide and the next one, maybe, what are we seeing here as examples of your systems in action?
Sure. but Matt, you mentioned something in the past slide, and I would like to address that. I don't know if this you want it right now. It's regarding
Go for
AI
it.
and the impact of AI into what we're doing and for the customers. I had this little epiphany yesterday watching the CEO of NVIDIA talking, and it reminded me the day where before we had actual browsers to browse the internet. There was internet before we humans were able to browse the internet. It was a network that allowed machines to talk to machines back then before we were able to interact with it. What just happened 2 years ago and has exploded this year is exactly the same. It's the fact that now we humans can interact with the AI ourselves. And what we are doing, it's also multi-layered when it comes to AI. Why? Because we have AI enabled sensors like the ones you're looking at on the screen right now, which I'll explain. And then there is AI driven processes, which is processes that are monitored or controlled by AI agents. And then there is the AI, there's a new type of AI which allows you to integrate that machine learning computer, to give it a name, with our IoT platforms. So what that means is that now it's super easy to say, hey, what is the maximum pressure of my 12 baghouses? And when was the last time that they flushed? And it will just go there and pick the answers for you. That's the number one important thing. The number two important thing is that in the near future, fixed UI screens are no longer necessary because this thing will be able to develop UI screens for you on the fly pertaining to your questions. We are doing a lot of this now, and I could not, I mean, I'm shocked, honestly, about the things that we're doing. I cannot believe them sometimes, you know? In a matter of hours, we created for Procter & Gamble a complete solution that was able to go into the sensors, which were AI enabled, to further find correlations between multiple systems and understand new things about the entire system that we were not able to see altogether, except for what this AI thing was doing for us. So we are out there for blood, you know, in terms of the gainings for the enterprise. But that's good, great. But you need to do the first things first. You cannot have AI when you don't have data. You cannot have data if you're not sensing or getting that data. So, you know, it's a process and it begins with the beginning, but there's a journey. We know what the journey looks like, and we can help you go through the entire journey. That was kind of my comment. However, here, what you see, it's a very simple interpretation that works for almost anybody, which is you may have multiple entities because a lot of our customers work in different countries or are composed of multiple different companies. So our smart industry begins with the corporation, so to speak, but then it follows with companies. That way, for instance, we have companies that pay budgetarily from different entities. So they all share the same central solution, but it's paid by everyone individually, for instance, right? Or different currencies or different countries, different people. There is horizontal authentications, there's vertical authentications throughout the companies. So then what follows next is typical like locations, but then you have like areas and you have systems and you have assets and then you have sensors. So what we're doing here is very simply, very quickly, we don't care if you already have a digital twin. We don't care if you have a maintenance system. We don't care if you have a competitive platform. We have a niche in each one of those scenarios, okay? But even if you can use this as your own operating system for this digital twin stuff, but also you can use that to mirror or bridge whatever other tools and technologies you may have, so we can all speak the same language. That is equally important. So we can drill down all the way to the machine on the right, on the top, on the bottom, where you can see now colors, movement, icons, visuals. But this is 3 predictive maintenance sensors looking into a glycol pump on a 300 megawatt plant, right? And it's kind of the end of the road where everything that had to happen happened. But then along with this, you may have supply chain, you may have fleet management, you may have asset tracking, asset lifecycle management, order supply, production, and all kinds of other information. So you can, from here, you set up your digital twin with maps, floor maps, pictures, videos, training tools, documentation. So it's really a complete system for the operation of something.
Beautiful. Yeah, what you said something there that really stuck out, which was, in the next couple of years, the need for all these dashboards will disappear because you can simply ask the questions that you want the answers to the AI, and it will show you what you need and give you the answers you need. That's incredible. I 100% believe that to be the case because just looking at my own usage of AI, I've got ChatGPT and Perplexity open on my computer right now. In the matter of almost no time, they've become so integrated into our lives and especially in business. I'm just really, I don't know what the future exactly will look like. I think you have a better idea, just as one example, why have all these dashboards when you can have the AI show you what it needs? That's incredible. And I can't wait to see that as well. Here's another example of a dashboard. Looks pretty familiar for a control room type of data, right? You want to show us what that might be? Looks like some time series data for a machine or something.
Yeah, we brought this up because I really love this one because this is predictive maintenance. But this is not just like, let's get vibrations and ultrasound. But first of all, we can get ultrasounds too, not just vibrations. But it combines a whole bunch of data, and it actually looks into the ISOs and tells you what the root cause, what the symptoms are, and what the possible root causes of the problems are. Way, way, way before you will ever know this in any other way. So the moment one of the bearing balls of a bearing case starts to act up, we see that immediately. So the amount of money this dashboard can send you, it's inordinate. Downtime, Friday night emergencies, gone. On plant maintenance, gone. Maintenance on equipment that did not need it, gone. So just start stacking up the money. This thing also has some extremely advanced technologies, like for instance, but this is maybe too technical, but in this type of predictive maintenance and the rotational environments, we have things like vibration analytics and ultrasound analytics by way of what is called the Fourier transformations, which is like a three-dimensional way of looking at time, frequencies, and amplitudes. So this thing already comes with it. So I call it the X-rays. So we can literally go in there from the air conditioning and monitoring from my house, something that it's down in Colombia or Timbuktu, and I can see all that is happening, and I can instruct the sensor to, like, you know what, give me 20 of these. So it will just go there, do the thing, you get back, and now you're looking. So we support customers remotely on predictive maintenance now. So we can combine ourselves as part of the team that helps companies understand the health of their equipment, for instance. And like I said, the early capability to detect and be able to advertise eventual future failures, it's invaluable. So here in the screen, we are telling the future.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's right in line with our, boosting ROI with smart sensors and industrial IoT. You want your ROI? How about predictive analytics, like you said, that tell you weeks before a failure? So that resonates with me as the dust collection guy because it's right in line with what we deal with every day. Fan motors, airflows, things like that. But then you pile on top of that all of the floor 2, 3, and 4 issues and concerns and pain points, and it's all in the same system. So quite amazing.